Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Orange County School Board. Thank you for coming down here on a school night and joining us this evening. Today is actually a very somber day in our nation's history, in that today is Patriots' Day. And Patriots' Day is observed on the day every year that the 9/11 tragedy occurred, and of course that occurred 17 years ago today. Every year, we are encouraged as a nation to participate in random acts of kindness, and that we know that many of our schools have encouraged their student bodies and their teaching corps to do that, and have also planned special assignments and events around Patriots' Day. So as we begin a moment of silence, please remember all those victims of the tragic attacks of 9/11 in your thoughts and in your prayers. So I'm going to welcome up to the podium to lead us in the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Beatrice Perez. Ms. Perez is currently a teacher at Sally Ride Elementary School, and after she leads us in the pledge and the moment of silence, I'm going to brag on Beatrice a little bit here, and you'll see why we invited her today. Ms. Perez, welcome.
Would you please stand and bow your heads for a moment of silence? Thank you. Now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Ms. Perez, if you could stand there for a moment. As I mentioned, folks, I was going to brag on Ms. Perez here, and she deserves being bragged on because over the summer she was named the 2018 SECME National Teacher of the Year. Yeah. If you are not familiar with SECME, it is an organization that is STEM related, but it actually promotes diversity in science, technology, engineering, and math education. And Ms. Perez was officially recognized in June as not the state, not the regional, but the national Teacher of the Year for the entire United States of America. The selection committee aptly said that she was chosen based on her excellent use of best practices and accomplishments in the classroom. And she was selected when she was at Cypress Park Elementary, and now she has taken her gifts to the children and the families of Sally Ride Elementary School. Ms. Perez has been teaching in Orange County for 8 years after moving here 10 years ago. And what a great accomplishment in only 8 short years. Ms. Perez, we are truly blessed to have you as one of our teachers. Ladies and gentlemen, Beatrice Perez, congratulations. Thank you for coming down and allowing us to recognize you. And Ms. Perez, I think the board would like to shake your hand. A number of them had mentioned that to me. We don't often get a National Teacher of the Year. Thank you again, Ms. Perez, for allowing us to recognize you. And I'm told it's pronounced SECME. I was afraid to guess, so SECME Teacher of the Year. Or is it like, oh, never mind, I won't make any jokes. But anyway, congratulations, Ms. Perez. So, Ms. Cobert.
I just wanted to say how proud I am of Beatrice and that she is at Sally Ride Elementary, which, for those of you who don't know, is an elementary school with an aerospace magnet. So it's appropriate that we have the National SECME Teacher of the Year at Sally Ride Elementary. And on the day that she was told that she received the award, she had no idea it was coming. And we were all in tears. Dr. Fritzler was in tears. I'm in tears. She's in tears. We're just extraordinarily proud of you. So thank you.
And I do believe we have some newly appointed administrators to recognize tonight as well. Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a few. First, we have Claudette Epkonkis, Assistant Principal at Meadowbrook Middle School, coming from being the Dean at Eccleston Elementary. I probably did a good job with her name as you did with SECME, Chairman.
Thank you. It's Claudette Agbon Casey. It's Nigerian. Greetings, Chairman, school board members, Dr. Jenkins, and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to serve the students and families of Meadowbrook Middle School. This evening, I would like to introduce my family, my husband, Mr. Sanders Parker, and thank my mentors, former leadership team at Molly Ray Elementary, my Eagle family, Dr. Helton and Miss Young, and now I am excited to join Miss Rogers and the Mustang family. Thank you for this opportunity.
Teresa King was a resource teacher at Boone High School. She will be the new assistant principal at Walker Middle.
Hello and good evening. I would like to thank Chairman Sublette, school board members, Dr. Jenkins, and this staff for this opportunity to serve Walker Middle School. I would also like to thank my mom and my little one that were unable to make it here tonight, my family, my friends, my mentors, Mr. Dusty Johns, Mr. Andrew Leftakis, and Mrs. Melissa Gordon for their support and encouragement and help on this process. Thank you.
Nicole Rutledge was Dean at Sunridge Elementary. She will be the new assistant principal at Sunblaze Elementary.
Hello, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Chairman Sublette, the school board members, Dr. Jenkins, and staff for the opportunity to serve the Sunblaze community. I'd also like to thank my husband, Matthew Rutledge, who is a teacher at Timber Creek High School, my mother-in-law, Pamela Rutledge, my father-in-law, Jay Rutledge, who is a retired Orange County teacher, my 3 daughters, Marlo, Adley, and Hensley, hey baby, my former principal, Denise Bainbridge, for all her support, Dr. Fritzler, Ms. Gibson, and Dr. Trimble for allowing me the opportunity to work for the Southeast Learning Community, and to Principal Christine Tamansky and Assistant Principal Kathy Ramsey. I look forward to working with you both and leading our Sunblaze students and faculty to success. Thank you.
Carl Wagner moving from Dean of Meadowwoods Elementary to Assistant Principal at Meadowwoods Middle School.
I would like to thank Chairman Sublette, the school board, Dr. Jenkins and her staff. I would also like to thank my family, my wife, my 2 kids, my principal, Mrs. Mendez, the staff of Meadowwoods Middle School, Dr. Border for his continued words of encouragement, and along with the Southeast Learning Community.
And finally, Helena Gergoin, who was program specialist for curriculum and digital learning, will be the new assistant principal at Palmetto Elementary School.
Thank you. Good evening. I would like to thank Chairman Sublette, Superintendent Dr. Jenkins, and her staff for the opportunity to serve at Palmetto Elementary School. Ms. Gordon, I'm so excited to be working in District 5. I would also like to thank those who have guided my journey, Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Schuler, Mr. Bixler, Dr. Villalba, Tony Buxton, and my colleagues from curriculum instruction, especially my phenomenal secondary literacy team. I'd like to thank my friend Maria Gaspar and Rachel Larson, my colleagues, my dear friends, whom I admire and respect greatly. I'm extremely grateful to work with the students, parents, and staff of Palmetto. I would like to thank Dr. Larson, Mr. Adamson, Ms. Hunt, and Principal Leftakis for this wonderful opportunity. I'm so excited to be part of the Palmetto family. I cannot forget my family, so thank you to my incredibly loving family, to the best partner I could ever ask for, my amazing husband, Matt, who's a firefighter, for being supportive, understanding, always believing in me. Without your support, I would not able to do what I love. My children, my sunshines, the lights of my life, Jacob, who's a first grader at Wolf Lake, and Julian, my baby boy. Thank you for bringing me endless joy and love, and for bestowing me with the greatest blessing of my life, being a mother. My parents who are watching from my hometown in Boston, thank you for being my greatest role models and my inspirations. I would not be the person I am today without your love, support, and encouragement. I look forward to working with the staff at Palmetto, and again, thank you so much.
Ms. Gobert.
So I'd like to say congratulations to everyone on moving up in your careers. And I would like to welcome Ms. King to Walker Middle School, although you are already at Boone High School. And also Mr. Wagner, welcome to Meadowwoods Middle. So we need to keep an eye on these two because they've gone from a mentorship from Mr. Johns to Ms. Watkins and Mrs. Vasquez to Ms. Mendez. I mean, talk about outstanding mentors that you've both had for principals. So congratulations and welcome in your new positions.
Mrs. Gordon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am excited because anybody that wants to come, you are welcome. So, Miss Alina Gogan, we welcome you with open arms. But you know what I love of all the things you said? You called so many volunteers that will be coming to Palmetto to help you. And even those that are listening are going to drive down or fly in, and they're going to come in and help you and the wonderful, beautiful principal at Palmetto. I think that I know it's going to happen because you have Dr. James Larson and you have Dr. James Lawson that really believe in involvement of mentors and helping those students that are challenged. So I'm very grateful for you coming from the 7th floor and going over to Palmetto, working with our awesome principal here. I mean, you can get a better person to work with and one of the best schools in the district. So thank you so very much for coming, and I look forward to meeting all of your family and friends, especially those names that you called out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gordon. Ms. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, too, want to congratulate all of our new administrators and to Nicole Rutledge, who's going from one district to school to another. Congratulations. I'm glad you're staying in the District 2 family. One of the things that we hear is from our new administrators is gratitude for the encouragement that their family gave them getting to that point. And I want to say these are tough, tough positions. So family, you have to keep that encouragement up because they'll need you now more than ever. I also want to thank all of you for wanting to step up into those positions because often we hear that the workload is tough, the drive is tougher, leaving family is tough. So I thank you for stepping up into those positions because we certainly need creative and dynamic and interested individuals to take these positions. So thank you. And families, remember, keep encouraging them.
That's right. Awesome.
Well said, Ms. Flynn. Well, let me also add my congratulations. Before I do, though, I always like to recognize incredibly well-behaved children. And I think I heard we have a couple back there, Jacob and Joey, and anybody else under 10 years old. Stand up and take a bow. Jacob and, was it Joey I heard? Take a bow. Did I get it right? So we can recognize you. Oh.
Look at Joey.
Y'all should be proud. They're incredibly well-behaved. So on behalf of the school board, I also want to add our congratulations. I always like to tell newly appointed administrators that your appointment signifies one very simple word to this board and administration, and that word is trust. It means that this board and administration, we trust your educational leadership abilities. It means that we trust your judgment. but perhaps most importantly, it means that we trust you with the future of our community, our children. And for that, your loved ones, your spouses, and your school family should be extremely proud of you, as we are extremely proud of you. So congratulations. It is a school night. Go get those kids some ice cream and enjoy your evening. Thank you for coming down tonight.
Dusty just texted me.
Yeah, isn't that nice? You don't miss these anonymous letters. You don't miss those. The STO is the cheaper book. And those that struggle in school, they are already frustrated, you know. Oh, wait a minute, where did Bobby Beaker think? It's the same day. Same day as that women's day. Oh, terrible. How could we do this? Well, because there's 2 individuals.
All right, let's go ahead and jump back into our meeting. We have, of course, a strategic plan update tonight, and I think I speak for the board because it's one thing we like to talk about the most out there on the stump, Mr. Armbruster and Dr. Armbruster. That is our CTE programs, because it's the one thing the public wants to hear about the most, to be very frank with you. So we look forward to this update every year, and without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jenkins. Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Armbruster.
Okay. Chairman Sublette, school board members, and Superintendent Jenkins, thank you for this opportunity to share our strategic plan update for CTE with you this evening. Our work in CTE is driven in large part by the 5-year integrated business plan shown on the screen. By working towards these goals, we have continued to expand CTE opportunities at the secondary level and have seen exciting growth in our CTE programs across all levels. For tonight's update, we will be focused on secondary students as designated in the business plan. As you can see on the chart, we have exceeded our initial goal of 30,809 secondary students enrolled in a CTE program by the year 2020 by more than 16,000 students thus far. We will continue to grow this number through initiatives discussed this evening. We have also exceeded our goal of increasing the number of graduating seniors earning at least one occupational completion point, breaking 5,000 students with the 2017-18 senior class. There has been explosive growth in the number of secondary students earning industry certifications across the district. After exceeding our target number in 2015-16 and continuing that growth into 2016-17, that figure almost doubled this past year with 9,438 secondary students earning an industry certification. That growth in secondary CTE students has also led to an impressive growth in the total number of industry certifications earned across the district by this student population. Again, after exceeding our goal in 2016-17, we had a significant increase to 10,534 industry certifications earned by secondary students in 2017 in a broad range of areas. There is one area that has remained flat in our business plan, and that is the retention rate of secondary students enrolling in CTE programs. However, it is deceptive because it is actually due to the continued expansion of secondary programs, meaning we have more first-year students each year who have not yet moved to a second class. Until we slow our new program growth, once we hit capacity, this number will continue to stay relatively flat, but should still meet or exceed our goal by 2020. Engaging students in career and technical education programming remains one of our key goals. This chart illustrates what category each of our adult and secondary students engaged in CTE are in, including high schoolers in post-secondary adult vocational programs at the high school campus, post-secondary adult vocational programs at a technical college campus, and secondary, middle, and high school students enrolled in a secondary CTE course at their home school. Our total number of secondary students engaged in CTE currently sits at 46,991 for this past school year. Overall, it is a 75% growth in our CTE students. Some highlights of how we are increasing secondary level Secondary student participation in CT includes the Project Lead the Way initiative. Project Lead the Way provides a well-researched, comprehensive approach to hands-on STEM education. We have invested in the growth of these programs through the $2 million Lockheed Martin grant and are focused on opportunities for students in the fields of engineering and biomedical. As of this school year, all OCPS high schools have at least one Project Lead the Way program, with 6 high schools offering both engineering and biomedical programs. We also have Project Lead the Way in 41 of our 44 middle and K-8 schools, with the remaining 3 coming online next school year. NAF, another strong CTE initiative, is a national network of education, business, and community leaders who work together to ensure high school students are college, career, and future ready. You can see our steady growth year over year in both open academies and high schools with NAF academies since 2012 and 13. And once again, we now have NAF academies in every traditional high school. Another highlight includes the growth in agriculture programs across the district, as well as student involvement in the largest career and technical student organization in the country, FFA. As you can see, we have grown our agricultural programs and teachers year over year since 2012-13 in our secondary schools. Our FFA student involvement and competition participation has hit record highs across OCPS. I'm also happy to report that for the first time in my 31-year career here in OCPS, we have agricultural programming in all 20 traditional high schools, and we are now moving to increase the numbers in our middle schools as well. Speaking of agriculture, our partnership with the Four Rivers Foundation is growing, and we will soon be breaking ground on our greenhouse at Edgewater High School, thanks to the efforts of the team from Four Rivers in raising $450,000, including a $145,000 donation from Dr. Phillips Charities. Plus, this fall, we will be harvesting our first crop at Ocoee High School that will be processed and served in the lunch lines at Ocoee High School. You'll be invited to that event. If all goes well, thanks to the tremendous support of Laura Gilbert, we will be able to sell our first crop to OCPS in the spring. This model will create sustainability in our future horticulture programs and provide fresh produce to students. And I would be remiss not to include some more exciting news regarding our wonderful partnership with Dr. Phillips Charities. In addition to their support of 6 other high schools, we are thrilled to announce that this year we are instituting the first LPN program on a high school campus in Orange County at Jones High School as part of their medical magnet. The picture above is of the first cohort of sophomores who will graduate in 3 years with both a high school diploma and their licensed practical nurse credentials. The CT department has committed to mentoring these students along with the 9th grade cohort as part of the superintendent's mentoring initiative. 4 years ago, we started a robotics summer camp at our OTC Mid-Florida campus to help close the achievement gap in STEM and related high-tech opportunities for our students in the Oak Ridge area middle schools. Students enter this unique summer program between their 8th and 9th grade year, where both technical and soft skills form the foundation and foster their team spirit into local, state, and national robotics competitions. Our first cohort of students graduate this year and will have earned 4 high school science credits and become eligible for 9 articulated Valencia College credits through their summer school participation. Our Career and Technical Education Department has also made paid internships for current OCPS high school CT students a priority. With a full-time district coordinator in place, we have leveraged our relationships with the business and industry community to create quality career experiences for students. As you can see, we have grown these opportunities from 37 to 187 in the past 2 years. OCPS has stepped up to the plate and led by example through CIO Jim Pulliam when our ITS department hired 20 interns from career and technical education programs for both of the last 2 years. This year, we also had placements at both our facilities department and our media department. We look forward to collaborating with even more OCPS departments and community partners to give our students quality career experiences. CT has been working hard to tout the benefits of apprenticeships in our high school, in our local community and our high schools. Working closely with our industry partners from business unions and non-union groups, we have been focused on increasing our enrollment in apprentice programs directly connected to fields needing workers immediately, such as air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, building maintenance, construction, and more. I'd like to quickly highlight FEAT, the Florida Electrical Apprenticeship Training Program, which has 661 electrical apprentices currently here in Central Florida. FEAT is the largest single trade apprenticeship program in the state of Florida and the largest electrical apprenticeship program in the southeastern United States. 3 years ago, we moved to create an enhanced partnership entitled Tech Express to Valencia College, which would make it easier for students to move from one institution to the other, taking articulated credits with them. This process had existed for many years in various forms, but with little success. In the previous 5 years, we had 6 students actually articulate and enroll in a VC Associate of Science degree from OTC. Thanks to a commitment on both sides, that number this past year alone has moved to 246 students. These are students that are currently enrolled at Valencia College. Students move seamlessly from OTC to Valencia, taking up to 28 credits with them on their way to earning an AS degree to add to the industry credentials already earned through completion of a program at one of our campuses. We opened our doors in Valencia, invested by putting Tech Express advisors on each of our campuses, working with students as they complete their programs with us to get them to continue on in their educational journey. Collaboration and participation in our local educational ecosystem is critical for our community success. In closing out this presentation, we think it's important to also celebrate our Orange Technical College history as well as the success of our secondary programs. OTC has graduated thousands of amazing skilled employees who are doing great things in our community. So this year we are celebrating our history and educating the community to the benefits of OCPS and OTC, to the benefits that we have been providing to our local community. The timeline above shows where it all began on the corner of Roslyn and Livingston, where our first technical college campus was established, the Orlando Vocational School, which later relocated to Amelia Street as Orlando Tech in 1981. Our colleagues at these two great schools in our educational ecosystem, Valencia and UCF, have put their 50-year histories on display recently. With that in mind, we felt like it was a great time to celebrate our 85th year and show Central Florida that we've actually been in the neighborhood just a little longer than people may realize. In fact, speaking of Valencia College, what you are looking at is their original home 50 years ago. Valencia actually opened as a collection of portables at our Mid-Florida Technical Institute, now known as the Orange Technical College Mid-Florida campus. The best birthday present of all for us for this 85th birthday celebration was our brand new Orange Technical College Orlando campus sign facing I-4. It was put in place the day before school started this year. This is it, lit up at night like an 85th birthday candle.
My age.
So our theme throughout this year will include alumni videos, historic photos, timeline graphics, print articles, billboards, bus shelters, and social media, all intended to bring the celebration to our community. Since 1933, changing lives through education has been our mission and our goal, and we look forward to the next 85 years. I would like to end with the first in a series of videos showing the impact we have had on the lives of those in our community. Before I start the video, I want to take just a moment to personally thank those board members who will be leaving us this year for your support of CTE and for your support and kindness to me over the past 5 years since I was blessed with this position. I will miss you.
As Vice President of Investor Relations for the Orlando Economic Partnership, I understand firsthand what it takes to help a community grow and thrive. And while the power of persistence is something I talk about every day at work, I first learned about it decades ago in my personal life. Growing up overseas as the child of missionary parents, I was homeschooled. When I later came to the U.S., I had to play catch-up to meet the requirements of the American educational system. And as the single mother of a young son, I faced a difficult challenge. Working at a church for about $8 an hour, I knew education was the key to my future and my ability to support my son. So after work, I spent my nights being tutored by patient and caring instructors at Orange Technical College who helped me earn my GED. That precious diploma was the key that unlocked my educational future and the bachelor's and master's degrees that followed. Along the way, I applied for 49 scholarships and was denied 34 times. But the 15 awards I received not only helped me fund my education, they taught me an important lesson about determination. Now at OEP, I rely heavily on skills that many people don't know you can get through technical education. And I often think about how Orange Technical College gave me my start with the education and confidence I needed to set my life on a higher trajectory. OTC's continued evolution goes far beyond the old definition of vocational education to empower students to reach their full potential and is truly remarkable. and the impact that OTC grads are having on the economy in Orlando and beyond is equally impressive. I am honored to say that I'm a product of the outstanding educational ecosystem in the Central Florida region. And while my journey has taken many turns since earning my GED, it is clear to me that Orange County Public Schools and Orange Technical College are changing lives through education.
I spoke with Leifka just yesterday over another matter, and she just absolutely acclaims what public education and Orange Technical College did to change her life. Now part of the EDC, now renamed OEP. We're very proud of her story, and there are many more to come. And I'm very proud, very pleased with Dr. Armbruster and his tireless work, his effort to lead our charge in Orange Technical College, and for his leadership team who are actually in the audience. If they would stand up, we'd like to recognize them as well. Future of our community and our career and technical education programs, which change lives, are in good hands. And so commendation to them all. We're happy to answer any questions you might have, members of the board. Hear your discussion. Chairman?
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Armbruster. And I meant what I said earlier. I think all the board members up here would attest that, and I want your team to know this, when we're out talking to audiences, the number one thing they want to know is what are you doing to increase access to career technical education, what they often call still vocational education. And we get an earful of it everywhere we go. And I'm sure you do too, because you work in the field. So I cannot sing your praises highly enough. We are just so thrilled as a board at the strides we've made in this area in the last decade, and that's due to your hard work and Dr. Armbruster's talent. And we're also incredibly thrilled with how we have, and the way I like to put it, I don't know if this ever makes sense to y'all, but the way we've pushed down meaningful CTE education further down into the high school and middle school levels, because that's always been a priority of mine, and not just mine, but this entire board. So Dr. Armbruster, before I go to questions, and I know you're going to hear a ton of this from the outgoing board members, that was so gracious of you to say you have no idea how much I'm going to miss working with you and your team, and how much this board members, the board members who are leaving, are going to miss working with you and your team. You've really been a bright shining star, your entire team, for our system. So thank you for that very, very much. Ms. Flynn.
I just want to thank you and your team. Thank you for your kind words, and thank you all for your hard work. When I go out of town and, I hear similar comments about we need more vocational or career tech, I said, well, we've got that. We've got it. We've got it. So I'm very proud that I'm part of a board that supported that effort, and that we had such a leader, and you, Dr. Armbruster, that pushed through these creative ideas, and a team that followed through with it. So thank you very much.
Mrs. Robinson.
I, too, want to say thank you. I've been out on the stump for 9 months or more, doing something a little busy, and every question everywhere was about CTE, and they don't call it CTE, but workplace, all that, the other words they use, and it was the bright shining star constantly that I was allowed during that time to praise, and it all's due to you guys. You make it come to life. You've changed it. You've made it something common that people now know exists. One of my favorite things is the graduation, where you shake everyone's hand and they actually, the next day, most of them have a job. And that's so exciting. And even the students that come across in the high schools that are getting both, that's just so exciting that they have a plan. And that's what I've always been wanting for our students, and what we all want for our students, as it continues, so that they all have a plan when they leave us. And I'm just so excited that it continues. So keep up the good work. I'm not going far. If you ever need me, you can find me, and I'll keep singing your praises constantly, because it's amazing. Congratulations.
Ms. Gould.
Well, I'm a huge fan, as you know, of all of you, and I love it when I run into you in the community at the simulation and modeling, or at a farm bureau, or at a hospitality event, or with ABC or GOBA in construction, you all have made a point to know where the jobs are and really target the curriculum throughout our school system in order to help our young people move right into careers if they choose to, or career path through this matriculation agreement. So that is fabulous, and I cannot thank you enough for having a clear vision and following it through. And you're always branded too, which is phenomenal. A couple of questions, and you don't have to tell me tonight, but I think this would be great for us to brag on since you're celebrating the 85th and we want to help you do that, is do we know how many students have been graduated since 1933 with a certification of some kind? And if we could get maybe a highlight of the top X industries, 5, 10, whatever it is. Because I want to tell that story. I just think it's an amazing story to tell. And people don't always relate the celebration with the impact on our community, especially our business community. And so I want to help thread that through. And thank you for all that you do. And keep it up and do more. Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. Mrs. Gordon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I too express accolades. I think the great green button does a lot for me. I just want to hit it every time I see the wall. And I did think I told you, somebody, your significant other, about the little green button, little outfit. I got to do that before I leave.
Yes.
I got to do that. I got to do it. I'm sorry. No. It's just something I said at a school board meeting. I will do that before I leave, and then they can't do anything to me. Okay. Listen, what can I say? I think I've been with the school board, this school board, for 51 years. But I was so involved in the very beginning of Orlando Tech, right here, working with Mr. McGow. I don't know if most of you remembered him, but we would go to Tallahassee, and as Darrell would say, we would be fighting for career education. And then there was a camaraderie ship with Harriet Murhill and several people in Tallahassee that really wanted to see career education come through. And even though they weren't as powerful as you, they were able to permeate into the middle, elementary, and high schools. They did exploration, awareness, and specialization at the high school level. And I'm sure you found those little scripts and probably thrown them out. But it was the ground root of what we did for children in elementary, middle, and high school. But I think you've gone beyond. I often tell Mr. John Morris that Mid-Florida Tech, I just see it as a divide. I just see the expansion of it, that whole city out there, just a city growing up around Mid-Florida Tech. Right now, Mr. Morris, we're on the planning board, and we're excited about what's happening. I wish I could just tell you what my biggest dream is there. I've shared it with Dr. Jenkins, and I'm sure they've shared it with you. But between Orlando Tech, which is in District 5, and Mid-Florida Tech, which is also in District 5, and then having the space out there, I just see everything growing up around the college at Mid-Florida Tech. You have done an outstanding job. I mean, I knew you were excitable from our graduation days, but I never knew what you were going to do in the leadership, with the superintendent continuing to foster and seeing what you could do. And I think you've excelled yourself. If you just move, I don't know where you're going from here, but I mean, if you drop the hat and said, I'm moving on, I think everything's going to flow because of the plan that you have laid. So what I want to say is, I am so impressed when I go into the community and the graduates come up to me. The graduation ceremonies are just unbelievable. All of them are honor students, the faculty and staff and the volunteers that go in, your business partners. I have not had anyone to say anything bad about any of our technical schools that I know of. And I really want to commend you and your awesome staff that's there, and every director, just super director. You all are really just conscious about what you do, and you know you are impacting adults' lives, and you make it happen. Everybody comes out there being somebody, and it might not get to be what they want to be at that moment, but before it's over, they are it. So I want to commend you for this awesome strategic report that you brought to this board, and I just want to say, go for it. And I got to do something special for you all, okay? So thank you so very much, and Mr. Morris and Dr. Jenkins, under your leadership with the design of those two new centers. All of them are going to be remodeled and redesigned and brand new because the taxpayers have given you the money for it. I just look for great things around all of our technical centers. So thank you so very much, and technical colleges. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Gordon. Ms. Cadle.
You all make me proud to say I'm a graduate of technical education. Right. And, you know, for a lot of times people were like, well, she doesn't have a college degree. But it was my technical education that has taken me my entire life. No matter what happened, it was those skills I learned to be an executive secretary that have taken me to a bookkeeping career and to be able to do customer service. And yes, I can still file. And it was because of people just like you who cared and knew that sometimes college isn't for everyone. So I'm really proud of all of you. I'm going to say a couple of kudos. This year I spoke at the Arbor Ridge end of the year celebration for their 8th graders. And if not every one of them, pretty much every child that walked across that stage had the Microsoft, they had gotten the certification in Microsoft. And I thought, you know, to be a rising freshman and to be able to do all of those things, whether it's the spreadsheet and to know how to make all those formulas work and to be able to do a PowerPoint, those children have a leg up on everyone they're going to be competing with in high school and college. And the other thing, and I know this is a Winter Park thing, but I'm pretty sure that Dr. Armbruster did it when he was doing Leadership Orlando. If you didn't, I'm going to be shocked. But each and every year for the past, I think it's like 12 or 13 years, Leadership Winter Park has come to the Winter Park campus. And you all have opened your arms, you have showed them what happens, and every time I go to an evaluation meeting, they all talk about how they're singing your praises. They had no idea what happened on that piece of property across from the Winter Park Village, but they all will come back. And I mean, these are leaders of banks and, you know, all kinds of up and coming leaders. And they're like, oh yeah, when I hear someone say something about technical education, I always have to straighten them out. And so thank you for always being willing to help us share the story. And we're coming back. We'll be there one last time in November so they can see the great work you're doing. So Dr. Armbruster, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your friendship.
Thank you again, Dr. Armbruster. I do have one technical question for you. Forgive me, but I didn't want to say it at the beginning because I had other people queued up ahead of me. The slide 8 of page 8, when we see that there's 42,000 is our student count in secondary education that are, the slide's titled Engaging CTE Students. Is that, am I interpreting that right? Is that 42,000 students are enrolled, or is that if student A is in 3 CTE courses, it counts as 3?
No, those are one student.
One
They're
student,
individuals.
wow.
That's how many. So for
That's
example,
amazing.
the PSAV high school campus, those are students who are taking a PSAV class on the high school campus. They may also be taking a secondary class, but they're only counted once at the highest level we give them. So the total number of 51,293 is 51,000 unique students, of which 46,991 are at the secondary level.
Well, the reason that amazes me, if I understand it right, so I think roughly we have 50 to 60,000 high school students in our district.
This is secondary, meaning middle and high school.
Oh, that includes middle school.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's
Yes,
still
sir.
an amazing number, especially when you see that we've come from 25,000 students to 41,000 in only 6 years. So thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for that. That means the world to me. All right, well, Dr. Armbruster, thank you. I feel like we were at your wake for some reason.
I know. I'm thinking,
It's like,
where am I
Mike's
going?
not going anywhere, is he? We are, but he's not.
I'm gonna ask that my
The staff's going to go, are you retiring on us or something?
that they can be excused, sir, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, and they're wearing, we call it Heidelberg blue after Senior Director, Mr. Heidelberg, but that is an unusual color for us this year to celebrate the 85th birthday. So it is a one-year color to celebrate. So I want to thank the two board members who joined us in that color celebration of Heidelberg blue.
Heidelberg blue. Thanks for coming down, y'all. Have a good night.
Wow.
All right. Dr. Jenkins, do we have any changes to our agenda tonight?
We have one change withdrawn. Item 1502, request approval of the 8th Amendment to the agreement for sale and purchase between the school board and the town of Eatonville. Withdrawn.
All right, thank you. I find cause to amend the agenda as suggested by the superintendent. Can I entertain a motion to do so? It's been moved by Ms. Cadle. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Robinson. Is there any debate or discussion of that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Show the agenda adopted. Let me make a quick preliminary announcement. Any member of the public who would like to provide public testimony on any item on our agenda may do so by obtaining a yellow speaker card from the far left-hand side of the dais from Ms. McGill from Board Services. And when that agenda item comes up, I will recognize you, and at that time, you will have 3 minutes to address the board on that agenda item. All right, we are now on agenda items 3.01 and 3.02, which is adoption of our budget. Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. As you are well aware, this is our final public hearing for the adoption of our final budget for the fiscal year 2019. We have workshopped and had several instances for community input and board input. Happy to present to you now our final budget presentation from our CFO, Mr. Kelly.
Good evening. Here's our agenda for tonight. I will try to make it as brief as possible since we've been through this data quite a number of times. We'll start with our proposed millage, go into the budget, then we'll have superintendent's comments, followed by public comments, then board discussion, and then we'll adopt both the millage and the final budget. So when we talk about millage, we're really talking about property taxes, and that impacts both residential homes as well as commercial buildings. So who's responsible for each component that determines your property taxes? Well, it all starts with your property appraiser. They determine the value of your particular property. From that, you deduct any Save Our Homes cap that's determined by your legislature to get to your assessed value. Any exemptions, they're also subtracted from that, and those are determined by your legislature to get your actual taxable value, which is multiplied times the millage rate, which is determined by both the legislature and the board to get to your property taxes to support schools. All right, here's our look at our property tax values over time. You'll see the 2018 item marked there for the coming year. Last year, our property taxes increased 8.4%. This year, similar number, 8.5% was the increase in property taxes as certified by our property appraiser. You'll see the projection in subsequent years is fairly steady growth of about 5% per year. You'll also note the state legislature, again, like for the third year in a row, really is not allowing those increase in property values really to support necessarily all the needs of public education. So they're continuing to reduce the required local effort. Here's our millage rate comparison. You'll see it compared to 17-18 year for this 18-19 year. You have the required local effort, which is going down by 0.171 mils. and then followed by our discretionary millage, which is the .748 again. The additional voted millage, this is the last year of that 4-year term, and our voters have stepped up again to the plate and approved it for another 4 years, so that really goes into effect with the following budget, but this budget is still based on the one that was passed previously. And then our capital projects millage is again 1.50. So if you look overall, the total millage it's 7.299, and that's a reduction of 0.171 mils, which is 2.29%. Here's a look at the millage rates over the past number of years. You'll see that in the red part of that chart, you'll see the bars that represent the required local effort, and you can see there how they've gone down over the last number of years. You can see over the last 9 years, it's actually down 1.374 mils over those past 9 years. The rollback rate, that really eliminates the impact of increased valuation. It's only used at the time when we advertise the budget as well as when we adopt the actual language to adopt the millage. So you take your current year taxable values less any new construction or additions that were added to the rolls for the year to get your adjusted values, and that is multiplied times what rate to actually equal your prior year proceeds. So for this year, the required local effort is 2.38% over the rollback rate, and the total millage is 4.25% over the rollback rate. So what's the impact to the homeowner? Well, for a homeowner with the Save Our Homes in play, you'll see the residential property, it can only increase the lesser of 3% or CPI, whichever is less. This year, CPI is only 2.1%, so that's the maximum increase for the applicable assessed values. So you'll see with the increase of 2.1% in assessed values and a decrease in the tax rate, the millage of 2.29%, the homeowner of a $186,000 home would pay $3 less in taxes for the year. Here's a look at the commercial owner impact. There is not the Save Our Homes when it comes to commercial property, so you'll have that same 2.29% reduction in the millage rate. So the change in taxes for an owner of a commercial piece of property valued at $1 million is an increase of $298 for the year, or about $25 a month. Now let's move into the actual annual budget. Here's our timeline we've been through. We started back in the fall like we do every year, getting community input, setting legislative priorities. Then this past year, the governor's budget came out early as we're in an election cycle this year, as well as the legislative session. It was moved up earlier. That 60-day session was January through March as opposed to the normal March through May. We had our budget committee meetings January through March. We had our allocations to the schools in March. We had various work sessions, and then we advertised our budget back on July 29th, had our first public hearing July 31st, and here we are tonight with the final hearing. So to kind of summarize our budget, what's key in this budget is compensation to employees. We heard that specifically from the board. That was important. Also in this budget is increased dollars for safety and mental health. And it continues to maintain our focus on our district strategic plan. And it does preserve our academic programs, retains highly qualified teachers, and protects arts, athletics, and student activities. And at this point in the process, we have agreement and ratification with both our unions regarding salaries and other language, and we'll continue the collaborative process throughout the remaining year on other issues. Here's our summary of 5 funds. Not much different from what you saw at the July meeting. The biggest difference we'll see is in the capital projects line. We now have carryover amounts in there for those projects that carried over from last year to this year. Also, again, I'll remind you the special revenue only includes the food service program. The other special revenue, the grants, are amended in as they're approved at work sessions or budget meetings throughout the year. Now let's talk specifically about the general fund. That budget's $2.1 billion. That is really the operating budget of the district, and the primary source comes from the FEFP dollars, and the funding is equalized per student statewide, and that means that revenue from local sources, if you have a big increase, doesn't necessarily cause an increase in your overall funding, because as RLE increases, they can offset that by state revenues, or like they've done recently, they can just reduce the RLE so it doesn't generate as much. The additional voted millage that we have in this district is not equalized, which means we get to keep the benefit of all those dollars in the county and the district. Let's look at our estimated revenue. Revenue for the district is really driven by our students, and here is what our FTE has been for the past years, along with our projection for this upcoming fiscal year 19 that we're in now. Our current projection is 209,000 full-time equivalent students. That's 4,971 additional students over the fourth calculation where we ended this past year. This forecast includes all your K-12 students, including charter school students. However, it would not include VPK students. This graph represents the total state appropriations. That would be both operating and fixed capital outlay as a percentage of the total of the last 4 years. You'll see in that first grouping education, and that includes early learning, public schools, community colleges, and universities. As you can see, the percentage of the budget decreased from prior years. It went from 29.8% of the budget to 28.5%. You'll also note the general government portion out over there also went up significantly, and much of that is attributable to the hurricane impact within the state. Now let's dig into that graph just on education. That's broken out here as a percentage of the total for the last 4 years. You can see the second grouping, public schools, did fare better than some of the other areas in the education budget this year. However, most of those dollars were specifically directed for those school safety initiatives. Here's a chart we look at fairly regularly as far as our per student funding. You'll see in the orange bars, that represents the actual regular FEFP funding that comes from the state. And this is the first year since back in July 2007 that that orange bar is actually higher than it was back in July 2007 by $33.77 per student. So for the upcoming year, we have a 1.55% increase in that regular FEFP funding over the prior year. About half of that increase is really earmarked for those safe schools, mental health, and the increase to the classroom supply assistance allocation. If you include our special millage, and that's shown with the dark blue, our total per student increase is 1.79% over last year. Even with the special millage, you can see that we still have a reduction in purchasing power of about $749 per student over where we were back in July 2007. Again, thank you to Orange County voters for supporting that special millage as it helps sustain our programs in our schools. Here's a graph of the state general revenue in support of education. This year we had a little decrease. It went from 52.9 to 51.9% of the general revenue was supporting education, and that still remains well below the amount pre-lottery that was about 60% going to education. This graph shows you the actual general revenue going to K-12 schools specifically over the past 6 years. You can see public schools did get an increase slightly this year. It was limited dollars, and those did go primarily to those safety initiatives in public schools. Here's a look at the lottery dollars. You'll see in the early years of the Florida lottery, 60 to 70% of lottery dollars were coming to education were for public schools, and that's shown on those green bars on the bottom of this chart. That number is now just under 40% that's coming to public schools. Of that amount, 16% is for the school recognition program, which is considered educational enhancement, which was the original purpose of the lottery. However, 74% just supports the regular FEFP funding, and 10% is to support the district's post-secondary program. You'll see the brown bars at the very top of the chart. Those are dollars primarily going to Bright Futures, and again, the legislature did maintain the Bright Futures academic scholarship at 100% of tuition for this coming year. Here's the pie chart of our estimated revenues by source for the district. There's very little changes in these percentages from last year. For example, the state is 51.93 this year. Last year, it was 51.55. So not very much difference. Those graph looks very similar. Now let's take a look at our appropriations in the general fund budget. Again, compensation is the #1 priority within this budget. We are also adding 104 school resource officers to bring our total to 222 officers throughout the district. The budget includes added safety measures as we've discussed in executive session. And additionally, we're adding 45 positions to support mental health, including 18 mental health counselors, 10 school psychologists, and 5 social workers. Other budget items to note in your general fund budget is that board contributions for health insurance remains the same this year, $8,444 for each employee, as well as the employee contributions and any dependent coverage remain the same as well. The legislature did increase FRS rates this year, which will impact the district about $3.5 million. And professional development dollars are included again in this year, funded from non-recurring resources for optional planning days. And the rollout of the new SIS system will begin in January of 2019, coming up shortly. Here's a look at our functional appropriations for the general fund. You'll see they remain fairly constant from year to year. Again, around 74% of all the appropriations are in the instruction and instructional support functions. There is a little increase in general support you'll see as we implement our new student system this year. Now let's take a look at the capital projects fund quickly. That budget now is over $1.8 billion. There's 3 primary sources. You have your sales tax, property taxes, and impact fees. We really get minimal state support. And this budget really is used for comprehensive renovations as well as relief schools, capital renewal, debt service, and operations. If you actually, that $1.8 billion budget, remember revenues, the capital revenues are just under $562 million, so, because you have a lot of carryover dollars within that budget. Here's a look at our capital revenues over the next 5 years, our forecast here. Again, they come from those 3 sources, the largest being the sales tax area. The legislature kept PICO funding, which you can barely see. It's just a sliver at the top of 2019. That amounts to about $2.4 million is all we'll get for PICO funding. The legislature did increase funding to charter schools in an effort to eliminate any need for the district to share your 1.5 millage, capital millage, with the charter schools, at least for this year. Your sales tax and impact fee projections are based upon historical collections, and property taxes are based upon forecasts by the Office of Economic and Demographic Research up in Tallahassee. Again, property taxes are increasing about 8.5% this year, and they're projected another 5% in the subsequent 4 years. Here's a pie chart showing us how we're going to use the funds for this upcoming year. This is based upon revenues and balances as we move forward. The largest portion of the budget is used for comprehensive needs, almost 35%, followed by district-wide capital, over 23%, which includes your capital renewal projects. And the next largest would be additional schools at 13%, which funds our relief schools. Speaking of relief schools, we had 1 new relief school open this past August, Audubon Park School, and it's going to be followed by 1 middle school and 2 elementaries to open up in August of 2019. In August of 2020, we'll have 4 more elementary schools opening. We will have 1 gap year with no schools planned to open in August of 2021. However, in August of 2022, we have not only 1 elementary, but we're planning to open up 2 new high schools. As far as comprehensive needs, we have 4 elementary schools, a middle school, and 1 ESE school beginning comprehensive construction this year. And this would not include carryover projects that are continuing to progress. We'll also have 9 additional schools budgeted for design in fiscal year 19, including the 4 Orange Technical College campuses. Other capital appropriations to note in this year's budget is we continue to move forward with digital curriculum expansion. We went live with all the remaining middle schools this past August, and we're preparing now for the elementary schools over the next several years. We continue to have bus replacement on a 10-year cycle. The capital renewal is progressing well, and many of the projects are going into construction this year as that amount is larger. Portable moves and leasing are in there to help manage those population fluctuations. The charter school amount is really just flow-through money that comes from the state this year, and it'll go directly to the charters. There's dollars again for the district-wide painting needs, and sunshades are included in this budget, and they will be installed over a 3-year period. We'll also be applying for some state grant dollars for safety. It'll be available later in the year to help with hardening for our schools, and we anticipate that grant to be around $7 million that'll come to the district for capital needs in that area. The debt service budget, that's really where we're just accumulating resources to pay our long-term debt. That budget's a little over $222 million. Revenue from that, you get a little bit from the state, about $900,000 that comes from your CONDS dollars, from license tax fees. And then the remaining dollars are coming from your transfer from your capital budget, a little over $87 million. Next, we'll look at your special revenue budget quickly. Again, this is just for your food service program, which is a self-supporting operation of the district. It's almost $170 million. It's an estimated they will serve 40.9 million meals this year. Most of the dollars come from federal sources. 90% is really federal reimbursement. 9% of these revenues come from local sales, and the remaining small piece does come from the state. We have our internal service fund. That budget's over $336 million. That's combined to support 3 of our internal service funds. That's your employee benefit trust fund, your property casualty loss fund, and the printing services fund. The largest of those internal service funds is your employee benefit trust. That's where we handle all the self-insurance for the health care program in the district. It's over $285 million. It's important to know, again, there is no increase in employee or dependent contributions in any of our 3 plan options. And again, there are no increase in our board contributions. And this program continues to comply with the Affordable Care Act requirements. The other 2 internal service funds, you got your property casualty fund, over $42 million, where we pay our property liability workers' comp claims out of that. It's funded from charges to other budgets. And then lastly is your printing services, $8.3 million, and that's also funded from chargebacks from departments and schools. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the superintendent for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, and commendations both to very capable CFO and his team for their work. Let me just make a couple of comments, and then we'll certainly attend to any additional questions that might remain. I want to add to comments you've heard regarding this tremendous community and their support of our children. While this budget reflects the previous $1 million that was approved, the next 4 years will be supported thanks to what our voters just did at the polls. And so we will continue to thank them profusely. But I want to also thank this board because a pass rate of 84% is virtually unheard of, and I just want to say it is thanks to this community's confidence in this current Board of Education. And so I want to thank you for all that you've done to secure the confidence of this community. That is a vote of confidence for your leadership, and because of you, our children certainly have brighter futures, not dependent on struggling with limited funds from the state. I also certainly want to thank my staff for their hard work. This administrative team I have the pleasure of working with certainly engender the confidence of our community as well. But this board's leadership and grassroots effort got us at 84%, and so I want to publicly commend you and thank you. Secondly, our 4% raise for our employees that the board made a priority is commendable, and it outranks what any other local district that we're aware of have been able to do. And so I want to thank you for that as well on behalf of all of our 24,000 employees. The community certainly appreciates our focus on our school safety and hardening our schools as well. Per statute, we present to you a balanced budget for the fiscal year 2019. Chairman?
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins, and thank you for those kind words. It's really all 24,000 members of our team who engendered that 84% pass rate, and I think I speak for all of us. We're so incredibly proud of the work our entire team does, led by you, and I want to thank the community. This community has stepped up to the plate and invested in public education 3 times in the last 5 years alone, and 4 times, actually 5 times in the last 15 years. And it really shows a commitment to public education and to the neighborhood school. And I'm proud to live in a community that supports its schools. So thank you, taxpayers. Mrs. Gordon.
Yes. Thank you so very much, Chief Financial Officer. Just unbelievable. You have really taught us well. With all of the 3 budget hearings and how smooth you've made it and made the information so easy to understand and read in the work sessions, how with you and Dr. Jenkins training us and getting us all acclimated to this, it has just been so simple. And not only that, when you want to look at a project that's in your district or see where the monies are going, we could pick it right up. And if we didn't like what we saw, we could beeline it right on into Dr. Jenkins' office and say, hey, wait a minute, what happened here? And then she will get back with the staff. You will go back to the drawing board and then rearrange the funds. And I love always saying this, bringing us a balanced budget. I think that is the most difficult thing to do. I have sat on this board where the budget had not been balanced at the very beginning. But as we got through the year, but to be able to maneuver even in crisis. So Dr. Jenkins, I salute you in your leadership. I think that is commendable, and I think you're going to be seeing that coming from the board members this week. I'm sure that you will see that. But to Mr. Dale Kelly, just an incredible department. We know your staff. We know how they try to work with us to get everything that we need. And I really thank you for this. This is one of the finest budget report that I have seen, and it is a smooth transition from one year to the next. And even when incoming funds would come from other sources, you and Dr. Jenkins and your staff knew what recommendations to bring back to this board and how to distribute those funds. So I'm eternally grateful, and I'm sure that the board will voice their sentiments. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Gordon. And Mr. Kelly, you and your entire team, you all work hard all year round, so thank you very, very much for all your hard work on our behalf. It's not unnoticed. I also want to ask if there is any member of the public who has come before us today to provide public comment on the proposed budget, items 3.01 and 3.02. Anybody? All right. I'm now going to go to Ms. Cadle to read 2 budget resolutions that we have to adopt. But before I do, I always like to remind folks, because a lot of folks do watch this live stream, that if it seems like there's not a lot of questions or comments about the budget, as Mr. Kelly mentioned a few moments ago, at this point we've had 3 public work sessions on the budget and a public hearing at a regularly scheduled board meeting in July on the budget, in addition to those 3 work sessions. So we've pretty thoroughly vetted the budget by this point, and there are no surprises in it by the time it gets to us at this level. So at this point on 3.01, Ms. Cadle, do you have a motion on adoption of millage to support our final budget?
I do. I move that whereas Section 200.065 Florida statutes requires that the school board adopt a total millage to support the final budget and notify the property appraiser of its action, and whereas the 2018-19 final budget is based upon a total millage of 7.299 mils, which is more than the rollback rate by 4.25% as computed pursuant to Section 200.065 Florida statutes. Now therefore be it resolved by the School Board of Orange County, Florida, that the board does hereby adopt the following total millage to support the final budget for the 2018-19 fiscal year. Required local effort 4.051. Basic discretionary 0.748. Additional voted 1.000. Capital improvement, 1.500, for a total of 7.299. Be it further resolved that the superintendent immediately inform the Orange County property appraiser of the action of the school board in the manner prescribed by law.
All right. It's been moved, as stated by Ms. Cadle, for the adoption of the millage to support the final budget. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mrs. Gordon and Ms. Flynn. Are there any questions on that motion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Show the motion adopted unanimously. I believe now Ms. Cadle can read us a motion on approval of the final budget. Ms. Cadle.
I move the following 5 items. 1, approve the 2018-19 budget for the general fund in the amount of $2,150,793,740. 2, approve the 2018-19 budget for the special revenue fund in the amount of $169,957,186. 3, approve the 2018-19 budget for the debt service fund in the amount of $222,532,629. 4, approve the 2018-19 budget for the capital projects fund in the amount of $1,858,305,493. 5, approve the 2018-19 budget for the internal service fund in the amount of $336,472,194.
Okay. It's been moved. It's been moved adoption of the final budget and the dollar amounts enumerated by Ms. Cadle. Is there a second to that? It's been seconded by Vice Chair Colbert. Is there any further debate or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Show the budget adopted unanimously. Mr. Kelly, your team, congratulations. Thank you.
And that was Ms. Cadle's last time reading those big numbers. Thank you, Ms. Cadle.
Yes. Well, and as I've said before, thank you to all those math teachers that taught me how to read those numbers.
On a bit of a more serious note, I also want to thank you, Dr. Jenkins, on behalf of the board and Mr. Kelly. We sent you forth with the charge that our number one priority was to provide for adequate raises to the extent you could for our teachers and our support personnel, and you more than delivered on that. So thank you. I cannot say enough how much we value y'all's expertise and your abilities. I know it was a bit of a heavy lift this year to do that. It took some creativity, but it was the right thing to do, and thank you for working through it for us so we could provide our teachers and staff with the money they deserve. Mrs. Gordon?
Yes, it brings back a lot of memories, the budget committee, and I only go back to the 60s. And we have a person sitting in the audience could go back further than that, and I just wanted to take a point of personal privilege to share a person that you know very, very well. This person has been the president of the Classroom Teachers Association, outstanding, along with Aretha Frederick during that time. They worked together as a team. They trained many of us as educators to work with the school board. They never missed a school board meeting. As president, either one of them, even an executive director, never missed a school board meeting. And if they could not, if they were late getting here, they would always send a representative from the Classroom Teachers Association under his leadership. The reason why I think you did so well with the bargaining, and Dr. Jenkins did, and she has chaired that committee, is because of the collaborative bargaining that was set forth by the person sitting in the audience. Not only did this person put forth collaborative bargaining here in Orange County, but he did it throughout the state, and he did it with the Florida Education Association and other school boards. He traveled throughout, helping them to get this process moving. And not only did he do it there, but he did it on the national level and served on the national level as directors representing the state of Florida and the board of directors for the National Education Association, along with directors and officers of the American Federation of Teachers. I'm talking about a great mentor for me, a person that resides in District 5, one of the best historical, and it is written in history, of the Florida Education Association and the National Education Association, for Mr. Ulysses Floyd, a former educator and a former president of the union, and also a former president of the Classroom Teachers Association, retired. I don't know how he found his way here tonight to this budget meeting, but it must be in his blood. Mr. Floyd, will you stand at this time so the board can salute you for your collective bargaining efforts that you brought to the Orange County Public Schools? And I know you may, I didn't know, would it be out of order if he wants to say something to us? You don't even want to say it, all righty, but all righty, you are welcome. Thank you so very much. So I didn't know if you knew the history about Mr. Floyd, but when you look at every journal that comes out on the national, state, and local level, it has Mr. Floyd in it. And he retired years, and I think he retired, well, I won't tell you when, but it was years ago, but he does not miss a meeting, and he is still our delegate for the life members of CTA like myself. He had me to become a life member, and then he's also a delegate for the retired educators at the national conference. We thank you for your support of educators, not just teachers, but educators. You have administrators in there also working side by side. So I thought the board would want to know your efforts on collective and collaborative bargaining, and you were the one that brought it here. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us tonight, Mr. Floyd. It's quite an honor. All right, board members, we are now on the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda or comments? I have one. I will point out, well, Mr. Rodriguez, let me recognize you first.
No, Mr. Chair, just I think she had already announced the change. You already incorporated that change into the consent agenda, but I think the reason why Mr. Floyd is also here is because tonight we have on my report the unitary status report that's coming to you, and we're going to recognize him at the next meeting. And a very special dedication for the folks that have participated. But Ms. Gordon, his contributions to our committee have certainly been felt and appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Let me also point out, and we will be doing more on it later, but item 4.01 designates the month of September 15th through October 15th, or that period, as Hispanic Heritage Month in Orange County Public Schools. So we are a majority minority district, and our largest minority population in the district are our Latino students, so I did want to say something about that. All right, with that, can I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. It's been moved by Ms. Flynn, seconded by Mrs. Gordon. Is there any debate or discussion of the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Show the consent agenda adopted unanimously. All right, we are now on report by District General Counsel, Mr. Rodriguez.
Board members, just a note that you were probably looking for perhaps a resolution on Amendment 8 and your position on that. But as you may have heard, hopefully you have heard, the court case decided not only to remove that from the ballot, but then the Supreme Court, that was the only amendment that was removed from the ballot. They heard arguments on a variety of different ones. So again, I want to just say, the League of Women Voters for challenging this has obviously stepped up to make sure that the members of the state of Florida have a policy or a provision that is clear, but more importantly, we are watching and monitoring that argument before the Supreme Court and the arguments they submitted, because that has a direct impact on your still pending House Bill 7069 litigation, when the state argues that that provision is necessary because it will allow charter schools to be governed by the state. It assumes then that the state doesn't have the authority, which it is claiming it has in our lawsuit. So it will be a very tricky position for them to argue. We we'll see how that pans out over the next few months and probably the next year or so. But just wanted to let you know that that Amendment 8 is not on the ballot, so that's why we didn't even put the resolution on there. But I do want to thank Ms. Fernandez, who's down there today, because she had worked on it and had already was prepared to submit something to you for approval, knowing that we should probably wait until the resolution from the court.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Mrs. Gordon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with that in mind, to General Counsel Rodriguez, I would like to add, I think I've had this conversation with the superintendent and also this conversation with the General Counsel in reference to the Unitary Status Advisory and Oversight Commission. As Mr. Chairman stated tonight, several of our board members will be leaving this board, and this board has worked extremely hard to obtain unitary status under the leadership of Ms. Cadle, was our chairman at that time, and then the present chair sitting in the seat now was able to help us touch up a lot of ends. I've asked that this board go on record to hope that with the coming of the new board members that we really don't want to fall back into the vestiges in which we came. And that could be done with the stroke of a pen and can be done with the voice of 5 or more. And we really do not want to see this discontinued. I do hope that you would allow Dr. Jenkins to come back with General Counsel, some type of motion that we could make that we keep the Unitary Status Advisory and Oversight Committee. And my reason for asking us to do this is because, we did not set a longevity. We said that we would be where we are today. I do want you to know that every school in the African American community is complete. And not only complete 100%, but there will be addition to the school. A new school will be coming and built by 2020, and then with the 2 technical centers coming, and then Dr. Jenkins and her staff taking a grant from this board, deciding that we would build a behavioral learning center for Cherokee, Gateway, and Magnolia on the Magnolia campus. And Mr. Morris and his staff has been diligently working on those projects to see that we move forward. I would hate to see, as a sitting board member, and those that are leaving that have worked so hard under the leadership of the former chair, and I have to give kudos to Ms. Cadle and Mr. Chair that's sitting there today, Mr. Sublette, that we fall back into the vestiges. And the only thing that we have intact right now that could foresee this would be the Unitary Status Advisory and Oversight Committee. So I'm asking if this board would allow me to ask to task the superintendent to work with the General Counsel to bring back some type of format that we could work with before this board exits in November. Mr. Chair.
I personally don't have any objection to that at all. Board members, I see everybody not shaking their head no, so I don't think anybody has an issue with it, Mrs. Gordon. And we'll ask Mr. Rodriguez to huddle with the superintendent and look at a plan.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, board members, and thank you, Mr. Chair and Superintendent and General Counsel.
Mrs. Robinson.
I just wanted to highlight, going back to the Amendment 8, and thank you, Ms. Gordon, for bringing that forward. That was great. But Amendment 8, going back to that, the big win, I just want to thank you guys, Woody and Eileen and the whole crew, because the judge was the same judge you had for 7069. And I really think, according to what, all that y'all had to put out in front of him and educate him on this whole situation, I think that's why he was able to see this issue for more of what it is or was and is. So that might, I think, have done wonders for the rest of the state. So thank y'all so much for that. I just wanted to point out that is was a wonderful timing and a wonderful selection of the judge. Not that we had nothing to do with that, but boy, it sure was. I don't like to use the word luck. It was ordained. It was destined to have him as our judge because he was an interesting one the first time around. But so anyway, I just want to congratulate y'all again on that because I think all of your hard work on that has helped with Amendment 8. So pat yourselves on the back. Thank you.
Mrs. Gordon? Oh, you threw out. Superintendent's report, Dr. Jenkins.
No further report, Chairman.
Okay, I don't believe we have any committee reports. All right, we're on agenda item 20.01. I have an item I want to float by y'all as a trial balloon. So let me sort of give you the groundwork. I think you're all aware I wanted to have this discussion tonight. I've been contacted by a number of parents out at Windermere High School, the Windermere High School parent community. And I think the pressure is building out there, and frankly, I think they're getting very, very unhappy over the lack of an on-site stadium at their high school. And I think that's probably the understatement of the year, to put it that way. I think they're in petition gathering. I don't think. They're in petition gathering mode. And I have tried my best in my conversations with various individuals out there to direct their energies and their efforts at the Orange County Commission, and have pointed out to them that it's my belief, based upon our history during the litigation and our design of that school and our layout of that school on the campus, that this board will always stand willing and ready to construct an on-site stadium for that school if and when the County Commission ever permits it. With the change in administration, it's my understanding that various leaders of that effort will be making an attempt after the change in administration, and they had made it clear to me it was after the change, because I think they realize that with the current administration, not much is likely to change, that they will then approach the new administration at the county level and ask them to permit the construction of a facility there. And during the course of that conversation, the idea arose, and one that I encouraged, but frankly, I'm not going to push unless this board is amenable to it, that it might help them when they go before the new administration after we're gone, after this board is gone, to have a resolution supporting the concept of an on-site stadium on the campus of Windermere High School. The reason I suggested, if we were going to do such a resolution, that we do it now, is because I have a good feel for how the 8 members of this current board feel, and I don't know how the future board will feel. I will say this, it's a matter of strategy, it's purely symbolic. I will say at the outset, there's nothing that this board can do to bind future boards, whether budgetary-wise or even, with a resolution. If the next board coming in wants to change it, then they can certainly adopt a different attitude. However, I believe that the way it will probably pan out is that those parents will go to the county commission, and I think it would help them to have that arrow in their quiver, so to speak, of having a resolution of this board saying that we stand ready and willing to build an on-site stadium if and when the county changes its position on that issue. So that's the long and short of it. I do want to say, before I open up to any discussion, and because I would like to hear y'all's input on it, that as I've expressed both to the leaders of this movement and to others in the administration, it's a trial balloon. It certainly is. It's a matter of strategy. We're all experienced board members up here, and it's not meant as a slight to anybody else who may disagree with this particular strategy. It's the way I would go about it, but at the same time, I never know how to say this, folks, so I'm just going to be blunt about it. It's not a fall on my sword issue for me. If the will of this board, in a polite discussion night, is not to do such a resolution, I'm fine with that. But at the same time, I do think it's the best approach. But I understand if that's not the desire of you all. So enough said. We just sort of throw it open to discussion and see what y'all think. Ms. Moore?
I was just wondering who would be the best to perhaps bring into the conversation what the issues have been at the new stadium. I just need to be brought up to speed. We've had several games, and I was just curious what the issues were.
Well, let me defer. Can I defer to you to that, Ms. Gould? And I will share with you, Ms. Moore. I'm of the impression, I can't speak for them because I want to make something clear, since it's just a general discussion. This was brought to me 2 days after the election. So I have not been part of it to this point, although I was well aware of the growing issues out there. I do believe, it has been told to me, that that group is probably going to come to one of our next 2 meetings with their efforts and their petitions and public speakers to talk to us about those issues. But I think Ms. Gould is probably as well-versed or more versed than anybody in this room on those issues. So Ms. Gould, because I know she's been living it.
So the very first game was against West Orange, which was a wonderful homecoming, but extremely well attended, let's put it that way. And it did highlight some of the challenges of that location, which obviously the distance from the school, it was the first time they were busing both band, cheerleaders, students, the teams, etc. There are some limitations that I've been working very closely with Commissioner Vanderlei on in trying to get some changes and maybe some looks at some changes and amendments in the current contract while we're operating. There are things that are probably solvable if we throw money at it, and there's things that may or may not be solvable in the long term because of the size and the space constraints with that location. So, this is the first year working through this. The county, I will give them credit, especially the commissioner, for stepping forward, working with the parents and myself including getting stadium seats donated through Disney, which one of the parents initiated, and then following up with me on that, and it was a great team effort. But there are challenges with this stadium that we continue to document, and that I think will be able to in the future open a discussion on. But I would like to hear the other board members' thoughts on this before I kind of give you my strategy and thoughts on this.
And if I can add to that, since sort of general discussion, really the four that I've heard, Ms. Moore, and answer your question is weather issues, lack of available cover when weather events occur. So obviously when you have a stadium at Boone or Olympia or Timber Creek or East River, weather issues arise. There's buildings that they can seek shelter in. So that's become an issue somewhat. Safety issues, I've heard the parents bring up, and traffic issues have been paramount as well. And then, frankly, the one that I think that as experienced board members we just expect to hear, and it was a problem when we were, as I've explained to a couple of the folks I've spoken to, look, it was a begrudging compromise. We were already 1.5 to 3 years behind in opening up a Relief High School, and we felt like we had to accede to an off-site stadium, but I think I knew, and I think every member of this board knew, this was going to become an issue. I mean, people, parents, kids, teachers, coaches want an on-site field and want on-site facilities. Your school makes it work, but even there we've had issues over the years. And
I told you when we were talking about it.
You did. And one of the things I've had to explain to some of the parents who have come to me, and I hope I'm not misspeaking, is, I've said, hey, you need to understand something. This was not a compromise we were happy with, but we sort of felt like we were at the tip of a spear, and we could have either had another 3 to 5 years delay. Well, we've tried to find another site, which we had already spent 2 years trying to find, or we could accede to this to get a school built. And, I think we would make the same compromise again because we had to get a school built out there. But those are the issues that have been brought to me.
The only thing I have to say is I'm struggling with Wekiva right now, and so I think with the stadium, I mean, staff's doing a great job, but it's required some things because the team is ranked I have to say this, the team is ranked #1 in the state. And Mrs. Cadley would have loved the game. No, she wouldn't have loved the game on Friday, but I did. But nevertheless, I think the conversation will come up. So what are the differences? What are the challenges that might be different from this stadium here versus at one of our prototype schools? So, Mrs. Gould can address that because I think that certainly could come up in any discussion over at the county.
So the #1 challenge that is, so traffic, let's talk about traffic for a minute. So the road is a little dark. There are plans for road improvements there. We're going to find out about the timeline going south. You can see coming back north from the Disney area, it's very dark and it's right on a corner. So that's some challenges. There is a light there and there is some crossing. Parking are a major issue. The fact that we can only fit 5 buses at a time to drop off students on that site is another issue. The chairman just referred to the inclement weather conditions. There's some challenges with that because we have to move up the call-it timeline significantly. Instead of it being, what's the normal, 30 minutes out, I think we're at 55 minutes out or something like that. It's close to an hour because of the time it takes while we park people on the site. When there is more attendees than there are parking spaces, they're parking at the school, and then we have to shuttle the buses. Well, the kids come off first. There's only enough room in the locker rooms really for the teams, not for the band, not for the cheerleaders, certainly not for the spectators. So those are some of those challenges. Again, some fixable, some not fixable. There's not enough room on that site to even build another shelter should the county and or we decide to do that jointly. There's not a place to, well, there's currently not any public lands owned to expand parking. So those are some of the issues. The traffic, quote unquote, traffic management, the last game, and I would expect through the end of the season will be handled much better. We've had tremendous support by the sheriff's office, by our own operations and safety teams and our police department in managing that. There's additional patrols around to help protect neighborhoods and the kids and the families. Those things have worked through. I think through this process, since you're asking this question, and obviously you need to know to have a robust discussion, we have to go through and are going through this season and really document what's fixable and what's not fixable. And that's where I am in looking at this right now. I have gotten a lot of cooperation from this commissioner, and I can't speak highly enough from her, picking up the phone at 10 o'clock at night when I have an issue. So I have to, and she was not the commissioner that was in place when we negotiated this. She has put a lot of effort into this. Long term, we may need to look at another solution. I don't know that this is the strategy that I had in mind to follow, and that's the part that I would like to hear the discussion, because frankly, we have invested a lot of dollars in this particular high school and site, and I want to make sure that we document everything to show that we've made every effort to get the ROI out of that investment.
Ms. Flynn?
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I can appreciate the position that you're in, and Mr. Chair, I just think of that long, arduous fight, and it was a fight that we had with the county, and to say that we're going to reverse that in 4 weeks, I just don't see that as a viable action on our end. I think first we'd have to see what the county did, because even though the commissioner was not part of the vote, wasn't she on that zoning, what do you call it, the planning and zoning board? And I think that was all part of it. So and here's the other thing. So first of all, is I understand the position. I understand where the parents are coming from. I understand how we all said, hey, you're going to go off-site, there's going to be issues. But here's the thing for me as a board member looking after my district, is that's an awful lot of money. And I think of the state the bleachers that we need, the new scoreboards that could be bought with all that money, the field refurbishing. And I just think that I have to stick up for my 3 high schools, and that's an awful lot of money in a short period of time for that one school. And we all have traffic issues at times. The weather, I was trying to think of my schools, if it starts raining, they have an awful long way to go. What were some of the other ones? Parking, I could see that's an issue, but with high attended games, they're on the streets and everything. So I'm hesitant, Mr. Chair, to commit before the end of my term on this type of thing. I really think it needs to be the next group that comes in that can really look at those issues. But I have to say, I have to stick up for District 2. I would think some of the others might have to. But again, I understand that you have to be in a hot seat right now with parents. It can't be a fun place. But I mean, this just happened not too long ago. And to think that there's going to be a reverse like that, I'm conflicted. I just have to tell you. I mean, I could hear more information later on, but those are my initial thoughts right now. Thank you.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes, thank you. I'm glad that you brought it up, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Well, I don't want to say we told you so, and not you, Pam, because, you were just, we don't know which way you were. I mean, I don't even want to ask you tonight. I'd have to go back and look. Because you had your community split, and you didn't have it split, but your community was split. And it was very difficult for you to bring to sides. You had 2,000 strong parents wanting what the board wanted. They wanted that stadium. They wanted that. They were very adamant. They came. They spoke out. Bill, the meeting that you organized at the high school, which was very successful because we were able to see the division. But then I'm worried about you, Ms. School, because I'm worried about you if you move to do this, and then we need to know where you are, because what this board tried to do for all board members and look at what is good for the community based on what you have discovered in the community. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but you can't be in between, and you cannot be wishy-washy, and you cannot just throw it on the board. You got to give us something to fight with. And if you don't be Pacific, then we don't know which direction to go in, because that's why we were elected. We are the voice in District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then Bill gets to vote twice because he can either break it or make it, okay? So you got to be the strong voice. And the reason why you shouldn't even let Bill bring it up, and I'm glad he brought it up, because that was a detrimental fight. Okay, and you couldn't stop it because you had that group. How are you going to go back to that group that you made some type of commitment with that don't want it in their backyard? So are you telling me tonight that that group is satisfied and they're okay with moving that stadium there? So you got to look at the fights. You're going to create fights for us if you don't get a hold of your community and decide exactly what you all want to do. You got to look at what, you can't just hear 4 angry people. And then are those people talking to Bill? Are they out of that settlement? Look what you would be doing to that settlement. We did it to keep peace. We know it wasn't going to work. We knew that they were going to be, I wrote it down here because I'm a game mom, busing away from their school every week to get to a game that could have been held at their school. I'm cracking up laughing about it, and I have to, because we knew that they were the cheerleader has to get on a bus every game. We even begged you all about the band and the instruments. I know about that. Ms. Moore and I know, I'm a band mom. I'm a basketball mom, I'm a football mom, I'm a cheerleader mom, I'm a majorette mom. I did it all with that. And it is nothing like, and they say, oh no, it won't be bad. It'll just be the equipment. But now I hear you say tonight, the cheerleaders, everybody, we knew that. We already knew it, but you have got to bring us a solid deal. You have to bring us a solid deal. But when you bring it, Miss School Board Member Pam Gould, it better be equity. And because this is what this board stands for. And remember, we got something on the table that we have not completed yet, that Mr. Chairman brought up, that Darrell Flynn brought up, that we are trying to do. We all have problems with parking. We all have problems with seating. Dr. Jenkins has seen to it that these schools get seating, and we get it equally. So we're going to do that. They already got a fence or two now. I think we were at Wekiva the other night, and we couldn't even get the fire department to come and take care of one boy broke his leg, a student got hospital homebound now. I had to call Dr. Jenkins' office, and the parent, nobody had gotten him in hospital homebound. There were no communication. One school had walkie-talkies, the other didn't. And then the fire department could not come. There was no place for us to take the kids, and there was no shelter to take the kids. And the other kids started passing out in those 90 degrees band suit. The principal from Wekiva running around trying to get the 3 kids who passed out. The fire department can't get in because it's overcrowded, and the people blocked everything because we didn't have fencing all around the school, Bill, that you have asked for before leaving. And it was a little gate. So those that had those big old 4-wheel drive, they hopped over the fence. The fire department that came all the way from Pine Hills, number 27 and 28, 30 minutes away and all that traffic to get to those kids who laid on that asphalt 30 minutes, no shelter, no cover. And they lay there because the Apopka Fire Department had no jurisdiction. I immediately called Dr. Jenkins and Dr. Williams and asked that we get a memorandum of understanding for these games, that there's always a fire department or ambulance like it used to be at these games, that there's always some kind of tent or shelter that we could put these kids under. We are in the rain, in the lightning. Jones High is the only one, because we were able to save, in Oak Ridge, we saved, in Evans, I think, they could go in West Home, but those guys are out there in the rain and the cold. I hate when we go to Gateway High School. We all out in the rain. So the main thing that you were asking, these are things that we already knew. You got to bring us more sustainable things that we can work with, because we all have the same problems that you just talked about. Okay, so I'm going to ask, Mr. Chairman, this is me personally, asking the school board member of that district to meet with our community and see, are those people that we did this to, are they ready for that to come back? So we need a little bit more clear direction before we vote or make a decision on anything. And I think Ms. Flynn suggested that maybe this is something that the new board could handle. And I hope that they are fair when they do this, because once you break that equity line, you almost can hang it up. And you may not have as stronger voices or voices that would verbal, and we know what's right and wrong. We respect each other, but we have to hurt each other sometime, because we have to make sure that the children is the number one priority.
And let me say, in fairness to Ms. Gould, she has been working on this issue hard, and she did beseech me not to bring it up as a trial balloon, but I made a commitment to the parents out there that we would float the idea, and I'm glad I did, frankly, because I think it allows us to get a sense of the board and where y'all are at. And I will tell you,
let her know where she needs to be for the
yeah,
board.
and I will tell you, I told the parents, look, unless we had near unanimity, it's not something I would push. So I think we've answered the question. But Ms. Cadle?
I'm sorry that it's a mess out there. We warned you in executive session that this was not the solution. We had somebody at the county commission keep going, Winter Park does it. And yeah, Winter Park does it. It's a much bigger field, but we've got buses lined up every which way. There's like band trailers and stuff. Every person has to be transported. They have home games, but they can't walk across their campus like every other band can and get there. They can't go back and take their uniforms off at school. They have to put the instruments up. They got to get on the bus. They got to go back to the school. So the school is paying additional dollars to get those buses, to get them to Showalter Field. It's been like that. I mean, I was talking to somebody in the city. I went to Winter Park High School in 1967, 68. There was no football field at Winter Park High School. That ninth grade center never had a football field. So when all of that was designed years and years ago, and I have been told, which could be an urban legend, but I have been told the Showalters, because that used to be an airport landing strip or something, and when the Showalters gave the land to Winter Park, it was specifically for Winter Park athletics and a football field. I'm not sure that that is in the archives over at the city, that's what it was supposed to be. So, you know, we spent hours doing this. We fought with the county commission over and over again. The homeowners behind there, they would show up at my Wedgefield meetings complaining. And I'm like, excuse me, what we're dealing with at Wedgefield is not trying to figure out where the field's going and not having to put this big tall wall. I mean, if you go down the list of the things we had to compromise on to build a school for children, and the compromises we had to do, and the money that we had to spend, we keep hearing that we don't have enough elementary schools out west. Well, heck, look at Windermere High School, because your elementary school is tied up in the architectural enhancements and the changes in the road and all of those things. We could have delivered an elementary school out there. We could have probably delivered a middle school too, by the time we got through with attorney's fees for this side, that side, the whole shebang. So I feel for the parents. But, you know, I need to see more that we're treating everybody fair, because that East River football field, there's not a whole lot of stands out there. It's the same thing that every one of them have. And I realize if they go back to the campus, they're not going to have any more. They're not going to have any more stands than what the other schools have. But I almost feel like the county should be coming to us and saying, we goofed up, we shouldn't have made you do this. We should step up and say, you know, it wasn't a good decision. And so, you know, I've gone back and forth on it, and after listening to everybody talk, I want to see the county tell us, we want to solve this. And then let the county bring it to us and say, you know what? We weren't fair to you.
I'm having too much fun with this.
Huh?
Okay.
You know, have the county come to us and say, we weren't fair. And so, I mean, the more we talk about it, I think the county ought to come see us.
I love that we're still so passionate about it 2 years later. Shows what scars it left on all of our backs.
That's right.
Mrs. Robinson.
We just approved the budget and passed it, so there's no funding in that budget. It's a balanced budget. So if we did anything tonight or agreed to do anything, it would just be words on paper. I mean, honestly, and it's 8 of us with 5 of us hitting the road. 5 new people coming in, that words on paper would be shredded and thrown away. So we can be angry, we can be upset, we can all these things, but the reality is we can't do a thing. We already made an agreement, and the agreement stunk, and we hated it. I think the one difference that I will fight for this, even after I'm not a board member, with the current board member that will be taking my seat, when they get to this point, because I do think they're going to be able to get to this point, without us even, with the 3 of y'all left and the new guys, they don't have cover to get out of weather. At Winter Park High School, which Showalter Field, my son's, when Edgewater was playing there years ago, beginning of the game, lightning hit. It's such a large stadium, you can go underneath. You're underneath a concrete structure. And all of our other high schools truly kids can get in a building. But this one, you're out, no man's land, there's no cover, there's metal. Let's go hide under some metal stadium seats. That's probably not a good idea. That is the one thing that I think truly that problem needs to be solved for our safety of our students that will be at that game. So that's the one thing that I think going forward, I will definitely continue to fight for that. But I just want to tell you, we can have this conversation all night. We can write whatever we want on paper. Why would we waste our time? They're just going to rip it up and do whatever they want to do. The 3 other folks that are here might do the same thing, and trial balloon, there's a whole new county commission coming in. What do they care what we're leaving? I don't know. So I'm just saying, as much as we hated it, and we hate it now, and we hated it, and we hate it now, and as much as I'd love to stick it to them, it's just, I don't think it's gonna work, so.
Well, and just so you know, understand the logic behind it. The logic behind it was if it were a budget amendment, which was the next step, that it would allow them to rebut the criticism if they get pushback at the county level of, well, we don't even know if the school district would want to build a stadium on that site. It would send a loud message that, the school district does want to build a stadium on the site. Now, you're right. They could always make the arguments, well, there's 5 new board members over there, blah, blah, blah. But it allows them to rebut that argument. That's the idea.
And once again, can we really make a budget amendment now that we've just approved it, something going forward that ties the hands of the next board?
No, you can't tie it, but you can provide the funds.
We can, and they can come right in and reverse it.
Sure, but that's true of everything in the budget in 2 months.
Yeah.
Ms. Coburn.
This is obviously not something that's going to get resolved tonight, but I think it's good to have the robust conversation. And I do actually agree with the myriad of comments made up here, and that's why this is such a complicated issue. So I'm just going to weigh in with some of my conflicting thoughts. We have to weigh out priorities with limited resources. And if I had a magic wand and unlimited funds, I'd say absolutely 100% build them a new stadium on site, because at the time, that's what I said. This is wrong. We're all going to regret it. However, we were looking at that problem at West Orange and the safety of our students. But we have problems that affect the safety of our students at other schools that would require those capital dollars as well. My Freedom High School is approaching 4,000 students. We're in the same situation that West Orange was at, and that new high school is not scheduled until 2022. What could we do there to ensure the safety of the students and alleviate that problem with those capital dollars? Or there's the new gifted school that those parents want that school to be renovated and updated. There are needs all over the county. That said, I think the most compelling argument for me is the safety of the students, and we've got to do something about that one way or another. And finally, I agree wholeheartedly with Ms. Cadle. The county bears the bulk of responsibility for this decision because we were between a rock and a hard place. Our priority is always the children. What's best for the children? What was best for the children was to get that school built and get it built as soon as possible. So I think in all the decisions that we make, we do have to put the children first, but we've got children all over the county. So again, this is my conflict. I'm not saying that I don't want to do it, I do, but I think that we need to find a way for the county who caused this problem to help solve this problem.
All right, well, great discussion. Ms. Gould, bring us in for a landing and we'll move on.
There are a few things I feel like I need to respond to here. First of all, I'm very proud of my community, as contentious as that was over that time period, because that high school had been kicked down the road until I came into office, and that was not fair to them or to me, quite frankly. Secondly, we have to have data. Just as we had community conversations trying to get everybody informed of the need in the community that was there, we did that through data. We looked at the sites that people gave as alternatives, and we found out they were not compatible sites. We did it through data. We did it through doing our homework. We did it through telling the story to our community and bringing them along. We did it through bringing them to the table to come up with solutions. And I was not the one that negotiated that final deal in the end. We all approved it in our executive session, but I was not the one that sat across from the table with the county representatives and signed that deal. So I appreciate all the support you've always given our community, but there were a few things that I felt put in question my tenacity for my community, and I don't think any of you can say I am not tenacious when it comes to what our community needs. And I will continue to fight for what is right, to keep our kids safe, and ultimately see where this plays out with the facts as we build that case. And maybe there's solutions that will solve it long term. I don't know that we can solve all the problems that are going to be on that site long term, but that's where we are, in my opinion. So thank you for the robust discussion tonight. I really appreciate it. And we'll continue to move forward. And as always, I'll continue to work with my community to find and bring forward solutions to this board. And I agree with you all. I think the county has to come to the same conclusion and be willing to discuss this. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. And again, I think this is helpful because I know that the advocates are listening to this both at home and here in the audience, and it gives them direction and gives them an idea of the sense of this board and the issues that are at play. So that's why we have these discussions, so thank you. All right, board members, anything else for the good of the order or for discussion purposes? All right, well, everybody have a good evening. We are adjourned.
Thank you for the birthday cake.